When you think of Germany, what comes to mind first? Castles, beer, or maybe Oktoberfest. But here's the twist. Germany isn't just about culture and history. It's also home to some of the strangest and most fascinating birds you'll ever see. In this video, we're diving into 15 strange species from Germany, from birds with flamboyant head crests, to night flyers that sound like ghosts, to owls the size of small dogs with eyes that glow like fire. Some are dazzling, some are downright bizarre, and all of them will make you look at Germany in a completely new way. Before we start, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, which bird do you think will shock you the most? Will it be a flamboyant show-off, a creepy night caller, or a giant owl that looks like it belongs in a Harry Potter movie? So grab your seat, because our journey begins with a bird so strange and beautiful it's been celebrated in myths for centuries. The one and only Eurasian Hoopoe. If there's one bird that can make you stop in your tracks and say, wait, what on earth is that? It's the Eurasian Hoopoe. This bird looks like it flew straight out of a fairy tale, or maybe a rock concert, with its long curved bill and that outrageous orange crest tipped with black. It's a true head-turner. And when the crest pops open like a fan, the hoopoe looks ready to take the stage as nature's punk rocker. In Germany, you'll often spot them in open fields, orchards, and vineyards, strutting around with a swagger that seems almost intentional. They probe the soil with their long bills, pulling out insects, worms, and even the occasional grub hiding underground. And while they're working, they make a soft hoopoo, hoopoo call, the very sound that gave the bird its unusual name. Here's a fun fact. The hoopoe has been celebrated in cultures for thousands of years. In ancient Egypt, it was considered sacred. In the Quran, it's a wise messenger. And in Germany, spotting one is considered special luck, since they're rare visitors in many regions. Now for the twist. Despite their beauty, hoopoes have a not-so-glamorous defense strategy. If threatened, they can squirt a foul-smelling liquid from their glands, and their chicks can even launch little poo attacks on predators. So yes, beneath that glamorous crest is a surprisingly gross superpower. Still, no one forgets their first hoopoe sighting. Imagine walking through a German meadow and seeing a bird with a crown, strutting like royalty, calling its name out loud. Would you snap a photo immediately, or just stand there grinning at the sheer strangeness of it all? So here's my question. If you had a crest like the hoopoe, would you keep it neatly folded or fan it out dramatically to impress the crowd? Let me know in the comments. And from one colorful show-off, we move to another. But this time, it's not about crowns, it's about aerial stunts and rainbow feathers. Let's meet the dazzling European bee-eater. From the crown-wearing hoopoe, we now turn to a bird that doesn't need a crown because it's already dressed in a full rainbow. Meet the European bee-eater, one of the most dazzling birds in all of Europe. If you ever dreamed of a bird painted by an artist who couldn't decide on just one color, this is it. Emerald green, golden yellow, chestnut red, sapphire blue, all glowing together like stained glass in flight. In Germany, bee-eaters are mostly summer visitors, nesting in sandy riverbanks or old quarries in the warmer regions. You'll often see them perched together on wires or branches, scanning the air for their favorite meal, flying insects. And yes, as their name suggests, bees are at the top of the menu. But don't worry, they've got a clever trick. Before eating a bee or wasp, they slam it against a branch to remove the stinger. Think of it as fast food with a little prep work. Here's a fun fact. Bee-eaters are incredibly social. They nest in colonies, dig long tunnels into sandy cliffs, and raise their young side by side. The air around a colony is filled with constant chatter and the shimmering flight of dozens of rainbow birds. It's a spectacle as dazzling as any German festival. Now for the twist. While bee-eaters are beautiful, they're not always loved by beekeepers. A flock can snatch quite a few honeybees, which sometimes leads to conflict. But scientists have found that they mostly eat drones and wild insects, so the impact is often less dramatic than it seems. Imagine standing in a German meadow on a hot summer afternoon, and suddenly a flock of shimmering birds swoops past, wings flashing every color of the rainbow. Would you grab your binoculars or just sit back and enjoy the free air show? So here's my question. If you could choose one bird to light up your backyard, would it be the crowned hoopoe or this rainbow-colored acrobat? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And speaking of acrobats, our next bird is tiny but fierce, a turquoise flash over Germany's rivers. Let's meet the spectacular common kingfisher. From the rainbow air show of the bee eater, we now zoom in on a much smaller but equally dazzling bird, the common kingfisher. Don't let the word common fool you. There is nothing ordinary about this tiny jewel of a bird. With its brilliant turquoise back, fiery orange chest, and sharp black bill, it looks like a gemstone brought to life. In Germany, kingfishers haunt rivers, streams, and ponds, perched silently on low branches that hang over the water. They may look delicate, but they're deadly hunters. The kingfisher's style is all about patience and precision. It sits perfectly still, eyes locked on the ripples below. Then, like a dart, it plunges headfirst into the water, disappearing in a splash, only to emerge seconds later with a wriggling fish clamped tightly in its bill. It's the kind of performance that makes even seasoned anglers jealous. Here's a fun fact. Despite their size, barely the length of a pencil, kingfishers can swallow fish almost as long as their bodies. They beat the catch against a branch until it's stunned, then gulp it down whole, head first. Dinner served, no cutlery required. Now for the twist. As dazzling as they are, kingfishers are surprisingly shy. Their populations in Germany depend heavily on clean, unpolluted water. If rivers are degraded, the kingfisher vanishes. That means every flash of turquoise you see darting over a stream is also a sign of a healthy environment. Imagine sitting quietly by a German riverbank when a streak of blue lightning flashes past your eyes. Would you blink and miss it, or would you be fast enough to catch the magic? So here's my question. If you had the chance to capture a photo of the kingfisher diving, would you reach for your camera, or just freeze watching in awe? Tell me in the comments. And from this jewel of the rivers, we move to a bird that looks far less flashy, yet has one of the strangest survival tricks in Europe. Let's meet the mysterious Eurasian Wryneck. From the sparkling dive of the kingfisher, we now meet a bird that may not dazzle with color, but will certainly leave you scratching your head. This is the Eurasian Wryneck, a bird so strange it almost feels like it doesn't belong in the woodpecker family, yet it does. At first glance, the Wryneck looks rather plain. Its feathers are patterned in shades of brown and gray, perfectly camouflaged against tree bark. You might think it's just another little sparrow, until it moves. When threatened, the Wryneck performs one of the oddest tricks in the bird world. It twists and contorts its neck in a snake-like fashion, hissing softly. Predators are often startled enough to back off, unsure if they're facing a bird or a snake in disguise. Here's a fun fact. The Wryneck's strange behavior is so famous that it inspired the English word Jynx. In ancient folklore, people believed this bird had magical powers, able to curse or enchant just by twisting its neck. So yes, next time you hear someone say Jynx, you can thank this little German woodpecker. Now for the twist. Unlike most woodpeckers, Wrynecks don't drum on trees or carve out holes. Instead, they nest in old cavities and feed almost entirely on ants, using their long, sticky tongues to lap them up like candy. It's a woodpecker that acts more like an anteater. How's that for strange? In Germany's forests and orchards, spotting a Wryneck feels like stumbling across a secret. One moment, you're staring at rough bark. The next, the bark twists its neck and hisses at you. It's a surprise that makes birdwatching here unforgettable. So here's my question. If you saw a bird twisting its neck like a snake, would you run away or lean closer just to see it again? Let me know in the comments. From this master of disguise, we move to a bird that trades camouflage for style, sporting a sharp crest and a dramatic call across Germany's wetlands. Next up is the northern lapwing. From the twisting, hissing Wryneck, we now meet a bird that struts around like it owns the wetlands, the northern lapwing. If the Wryneck was strange for its disguise, the lapwing is strange for its drama. With a long, wispy crest on its head, shimmering green wings, and a loud metallic call, This bird is part fashion model, part alarm system. In Germany, lapwings can be found in wet meadows, farmland, and marshes. Their flight is unmistakable, slow, exaggerated wing beats that make them look like they're dancing in the sky. And when breeding season arrives, males put on aerial shows, swooping and diving while calling loudly to impress the females. It's not just a flight, it's a performance. Here's a fun fact. The lapwing's call is so distinctive that in some regions, farmers once used it as a natural weather signal. Hearing lapwings meant the wetlands were alive and healthy, and spring was truly on its way. Now for the twist. Lapwings are fiercely protective parents. If a predator comes too close to their nest, they'll mob it, swooping down, calling loudly, and even pretending to be injured to lure danger away from their eggs. Imagine a whole flock of these dramatic birds circling overhead. It's like nature's version of a noisy protest. Despite their resilience, lapwings in Germany have faced steep declines due to habitat loss. Farmland drainage and intensive agriculture have reduced the wetlands they depend on. Seeing one today feels both like a gift and a reminder of how fragile these ecosystems are. Picture this. You're walking through a German meadow, the wind rustling the grasses, when a lapwing bursts into the sky, crest waving, wings shimmering green and bronze. Would you watch in awe at its dance or cover your ears at its noisy calls? So here's my question. If you were a bird parent, would you defend your nest with quiet patience or full-blown lapwing drama? Share your thoughts in the comments. And from this dramatic wetland guardian, we now shift to a creature of the night. Silent wings, eerie calls, and a reputation that has earned it the nickname goatsucker. Next up, the European Nightjar. From the noisy drama of the lapwing, we now step into the twilight, where one of Germany's strangest and most mysterious birds comes alive, the European Nightjar. At first glance, you might not even notice it. With mottled gray and brown feathers, the nightjar blends so perfectly with tree bark or forest floor that it's almost invisible. But once night falls, it transforms. Nightjars are nocturnal hunters, sweeping silently through the air with long wings and wide mouths, catching moths and insects in flight. They don't have the sharp beaks or talons of owls, but they make up for it with stealth. Imagine a shadow gliding across a moonlit meadow, silent, sudden, and gone in a flash. That's the nightjar's world. Here's a fun fact. The nightjar's call is one of the strangest sounds in Europe. It produces a long, mechanical, churring trill, almost like a motorcycle engine idling in the distance. Locals once believed these birds had magical powers, or even that they sucked milk from goats at night. Hence the old nickname, goatsucker. Of course, that's pure myth, but it shows how eerie and mysterious their presence felt to people. Now for the twist. While nightjars may look ghostly, they're also excellent parents. The female lays her eggs directly on the ground, without a nest, relying on her camouflage to keep them safe. If threatened, she may perform distraction displays, fluttering weakly to draw predators away. It's a humble yet effective survival strategy. In Germany, nightjars prefer heathlands, clearings, and open forests. Their presence is often first revealed not by sight, but by sound, an unearthly trill drifting across the night air. Hearing it for the first time can give you chills, but it's a reminder of the wild rhythms still alive in Europe's landscapes. Imagine standing in a German forest at dusk, when suddenly that strange, endless trill begins. Would you find it haunting, beautiful, or maybe a little of both? So here's my question. If you heard the nightjar's engine call in the dark, would you follow the sound or head quickly in the other direction? Share your answer in the comments. And from this shadowy bird of the night, we move to the king of the forest, a massive grouse with one of the most bizarre mating displays in Europe, the western Capercaillie. From the mysterious hum of the nightjar, we now step deeper into Germany's forest to meet a true giant, the western Capercaillie, often called the king of the forest. And trust me, when you see one, you'll understand why. The male Capercaillie is an enormous grouse, nearly the size of a turkey, with glossy dark feathers, a fan-shaped tail, and a beard of bristly feathers under its chin. But the most unforgettable feature? its bizarre courtship display. During mating season, males strut through the forest clearing, tail fanned wide, wings drooping, and they make a series of strange sounds, clicks, pops, and a kind of metallic wheeze that build to a crescendo. It's half bird, half bagpipe, and all weird. Here's a fun fact. The Capercaillie's name comes from Old Gaelic, meaning horse of the woods. Fitting because when these males get going, they stomp and strut with the confidence of a stallion. In Germany, their displays are so famous that birdwatchers wake before dawn in spring just to witness the show. Now for the twist. While the males are dramatic, the females are the opposite. Smaller, brown, and camouflaged, blending perfectly with the forest floor. They do all the nesting and chick rearing, while the flashy males focus solely on performing. Nature's division of labor can be a bit unfair. Unfortunately, Capercaillies in Germany are declining due to habitat loss. Once widespread, they're now confined to a few mountainous forests, like the Black Forest and Bavarian Alps. Spotting one today is like stepping back into an older, wilder Europe. Imagine hiking in a German pine forest at dawn, when suddenly you hear a bizarre popping and wheezing sound. Then see a giant grouse strutting like it owns the place. Would you laugh at its odd performance? Or applaud it like a front row fan at a rock concert? So here's my question. If you had the chance, would you wake up at 4 a.m. just to watch the Capercaillie's display live? Tell me in the comments. And from the king of the forest, we move to his equally dramatic cousin, famous for wild dances on open moorlands, the black grouse. From the mighty Capercaillie, we now move to a cousin that may be smaller in size, but arguably even flashier in performance, the black grouse. If the Capercaillie is the king, then the black grouse is the showman of Germany's uplands and moors. The male black grouse is striking. Glossy black plumage that shines with a blue sheen in sunlight, bright red wattles above the eyes, and a lyre-shaped tail with white underfeathers. But the real show begins during the breeding season at a place called the Lek, an open patch of ground where males gather to strut, fight, and perform in front of females. The display is unlike anything else in Europe. Males fan their tails, bow low, and make strange, bubbling calls mixed with sharp hisses. Dozens of males may gather, each trying to outdo the other with louder calls and bolder moves. It's a mix of dance competition and boxing match, and the females simply watch, choosing their favorite performer. Here's a fun fact. Scientists believe these lekking battles have been happening for thousands of years, passed down generation after generation. In Germany, people once called them battles of the blackcocks, and they were so iconic that the black grouse became a symbol of wild landscapes. Now for the twist. While the display is spectacular, the black grouse has faced serious population declines across Europe, including Germany. Changes in land use, forestry, and farming have reduced their habitats. Today, their dramatic dawn gatherings are rarer and treasured by those lucky enough to witness them. Imagine standing on a misty German moor at sunrise. The air is cold, your breath hangs in the air, and suddenly the silence breaks with bubbling calls and the sight of black birds strutting like feathered gladiators. Would you stay for hours just to soak in the spectacle? So here's my question. If you could judge this strange bird dance-off, what would you score higher? Style, stamina, or sheer volume? Tell me in the comments. And from these dancers of the dawn, we now turn to a bird that trades noisy performances for elegance and grace in the skies, the majestic common crane. From the noisy dawn dance of the black grouse, we now move to a bird whose performance takes place on a much grander stage, the common crane. These tall, elegant birds are icons of migration, and in Germany, they turn the skies into living rivers of sound and motion. The common crane is impressive on the ground. Gray plumage with black wingtips, a striking red crown, and long legs that make it look almost regal. But it's in the air where the magic happens. During migration, thousands of cranes gather in flocks, flying in graceful V-shaped formations, their bugling calls echoing across the landscape. In Germany, especially in autumn, Watching the skies fill with cranes heading south is one of nature's most breathtaking spectacles. Here's a fun fact. Cranes mate for life, and their pair bonding dances are legendary. They leap, bow, toss grass into the air, and flap their wings in unison, like ballet dancers rehearsing for a stage performance. Even young cranes practice these moves as if preparing for their future courtship routines. Now for the twist. While cranes seem untouchable in their grace, their survival depends on fragile wetlands and stopover sites along their migration routes. In Germany, conservation efforts have protected key areas, turning places like the Darß Peninsula and the Brandenburg wetlands into crane-watching hotspots. Each autumn, tens of thousands of birdwatchers gather to witness their passage, a reminder of how deeply nature and culture can intertwine. Imagine standing in a wide German field at sunset, the sky glowing orange, when suddenly the horizon fills with long V-shaped lines of cranes, their calls rolling like thunder. Would you feel small under their majesty, or lifted by the thought that such beauty still exists? So here's my question. If you could join a crane on its long migration, would you prefer to glide high above the clouds, or travel slowly, savoring every landscape along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. And from these elegant travelers of the sky, we move to a bird that is much more secretive, dark, shy, and haunting. Next up is the elusive black stork. From the grand migration of the common crane, we now turn to a bird that is far more secretive, the mysterious black stork. Unlike its well-known cousin, the white stork, which nests happily on rooftops and chimneys across Europe, the black stork avoids people altogether. It hides deep in Germany's old forests and quiet wetlands, a shadowy figure few ever get to see. The black stork is striking in its own way. Its feathers are glossy black with an iridescent green and purple sheen that glimmers in the sunlight, while its long red legs and bill provide a splash of vivid color. In flight, with its broad wings stretched wide, it looks majestic yet somehow darker, more secretive than the familiar white stork. Here's a fun fact. Black storks are incredibly shy and sensitive to disturbance. While white storks will nest near villages, black storks prefer remote forest clearings or rivers hidden away from human eyes. If they sense intrusion, they may abandon their nests entirely. That's one reason why spotting them in Germany feels like discovering a hidden treasure. Now for the twist. Because of their secretive nature, black storks have become symbols of wilderness in Europe. Their presence indicates healthy, undisturbed habitats. In Germany, conservation programs have worked hard to protect them, and today they are slowly recovering, though they remain rare and special. Imagine hiking quietly through a German forest, when suddenly a dark shape rises from the riverbank. The sunlight catches its feathers, flashing green and purple for just a second before it disappears into the canopy. Would you chase after it for a better look, or treasure that fleeting glimpse as something sacred? So here's my question. If you had the choice, would you rather see dozens of familiar white storks, or just one elusive black stork in the wild? Tell me in the comments. And from this hidden jewel of Germany's forests, we now shift to a much smaller bird, playful, punk-haired, and surprisingly bold. Next up is the charming Crested Tit. From the shy mystery of the black stork, we now meet a bird that seems to have no interest in hiding at all, the playful Crested Tit. If the hoopoe is nature's punk rocker, then the Crested Tit is its spiky-haired sidekick. This small songbird, barely bigger than a sparrow, is instantly recognizable by the bold black and white crest sticking straight up from its head. It looks a little like it's always having a bad hair day, or maybe just got back from a rock concert. Either way, that wild crest gives it a personality much larger than its size. In Germany, crested tits are most often found in pine and spruce forests, especially in the Black Forest and Bavarian Alps. Unlike many shy woodland birds, these little characters are bold and curious. They flit from branch to branch, hanging upside down, pecking at seeds, and often coming surprisingly close to humans. If you pause quietly on a forest trail, there's a good chance one will hop close enough to give you a curious look. Here's a fun fact. Crested tits don't just rely on feeders in winter. They actually cache seeds and insects in tree bark, creating tiny food stores they can return to later. It's nature's pantry system, proof that even the tiniest birds can plan ahead. Now for the twist. While they look playful, crested tits are also tough. Winters in Germany's forests can be harsh, yet these little birds survive thanks to their smarts, energy, and adaptability. For birdwatchers, spotting one in a snowy forest feels like finding a little spark of joy in the cold. Imagine walking through a frosty German woodland, the trees silent and white with snow, when suddenly a tiny bird with a spiky crest hops onto a branch nearby, cocking its head as if to say hello. Would you reach for your camera or just smile, feeling like nature shared a secret with you? So here's my question. If you could style your hair like any bird, would you pick the flamboyant hoopoe or the punky little crested tit? Tell me in the comments. And from this playful forest sprite, we move to a bird with a much darker side, a predator with the nickname butcher bird. Next up, the red-backed shrike. From the playful crested tit, we now meet a bird with a far darker reputation, the red-backed shrike, often called the butcher bird. And once you hear why, you'll never forget it. At first glance, the shrike looks rather charming. The male has a soft pinkish belly, a bluish-gray head, and a rusty red back that gives it its name. With a black bandit mask across its eyes, it almost looks like a small, stylish songbird. But don't let the good looks fool you. This bird has a brutal hunting technique. Shrikes hunt insects, lizards, even small birds, and then do something truly strange. They impale their prey on thorns, barbed wire, or sharp twigs. Scientists think they do this to store food for later or to help tear it into smaller pieces. Either way, it's like a macabre pantry, nature's version of a refrigerator, but one that looks straight out of a horror story. Here's a fun fact. Because of this habit, people in the past associated shrikes with bad omens, calling them butcher birds, or even symbols of execution. But in modern times, birdwatchers see them as fascinating examples of adaptation. After all, it takes ingenuity to turn a thorn bush into a dinner table. Now for the twist. Despite their fierce reputation, shrikes are declining in parts of Germany due to habitat loss. They prefer open farmland with hedges and thorny bushes. But as these disappear, so do the shrikes. Today, spotting one perched on a fence post is a special moment. Imagine walking along a country path in Germany and you notice a tiny bird on a hedge. It looks harmless until you realize there's a grasshopper stuck on a thorn beside it, waiting to be eaten. Would you find it gruesome or fascinating? So here's my question. If you had to pick, would you rather be known as the butcher bird for your hunting skills or the punk bird like the crested tit for your style? Tell me in the comments. And from this tiny predator, we now move back into the forest, where another master of drumming and climbing takes the stage, the gray-headed woodpecker. From the thorny butcher bird, we now return to the woods to meet a drummer with a quieter kind of charm, the gray-headed woodpecker. While its cousin, the green woodpecker, is better known across Europe, this subtler bird is one of Germany's hidden forest gems. The gray-headed woodpecker is medium-sized, with soft green plumage across its body, a pale belly, and, true to its name, a gray head that gives it a wise, almost elderly look. Males sport a small red crown, just enough color to add flair without stealing the show. Watching one clamber up a tree trunk, tail braced against the bark, is like watching a little mountaineer at work. Here's a fun fact. Unlike many woodpeckers that feed mainly on insects under bark, gray-headed woodpeckers have a particular love for ants. They'll hop down to the ground and use their long, sticky tongues to lap up ants and larvae by the hundreds. It's a bit like watching a kid attack a jar of honey. Messy, relentless, and oddly satisfying. Now for the twist. These woodpeckers are excellent indicators of healthy forests. They need old trees for nesting cavities and open areas where ants thrive. If you see a gray-headed woodpecker, you know you're in a well-balanced habitat, but their reliance on old woodlands also makes them vulnerable to logging and habitat changes. In Germany, they're more often heard than seen. Their calls, a loud laughing "klee klee klee," echo through the forest in spring. It's a sound that can catch you off guard, making you look up and wonder if someone just giggled in the trees. Imagine walking through a quiet German forest when suddenly that strange laugh rings out, followed by the rhythmic tapping of a woodpecker. Would you track it down for a glimpse, or just enjoy the mystery of knowing it's there? So here's my question. If you had a tongue long enough to raid an anthill, would you use it or pass on nature's ant buffet? Tell me in the comments. And from this understated drummer of the woods, we move to a bird that wears its style on its face, tiny, charming, and sporting a dashing black mustache. Next up is the bearded reedling. From the laughing call of the gray-headed woodpecker, we now glide into the wetlands where one of Germany's most charming little characters resides, the bearded reedling, also known as the bearded tit. And no, it doesn't actually have a beard, but it sure looks like it does. This small bird is round and soft-looking, with warm orange-brown plumage and a long, thin tail. But the males have something extra, bold black mustaches that droop from their faces, giving them a dashing, almost comical look. Picture a tiny bird dressed as an old-timey gentleman, complete with a handlebar mustache. Once you see it, you'll never forget it. Bearded reedlings live in reed beds along lakes and marshes, and they're specialists at navigating this dense, swaying habitat. They climb and balance on reeds like acrobats, feeding mostly on insects in summer and seeds in winter. Their calls, sharp ping notes, echo through the reeds like little bells, letting you know they're nearby even when you can't see them. Here's a fun fact. These birds change their diet dramatically with the seasons. In summer, they're insectivores, gobbling up bugs. In winter, they switch to eating tough seeds. To handle the switch, their digestive systems literally adapt. Proof that even tiny birds can reinvent themselves when survival calls. Now for the twist. Despite their cuteness, bearded reedlings are surprisingly elusive. They rarely leave the reed beds, so spotting one requires patience. Birdwatchers in Germany often say the first glimpse, when the reeds part and a little mustache face pops out, is unforgettable. Imagine standing quietly at the edge of a German marsh, binoculars ready, when you finally see a flash of orange and that ridiculous little mustache staring back at you. Would you burst out laughing or whisper in awe at how strange and perfect it looks? So here's my question. If you could grow a mustache like the bearded reedling, would you wear it proudly or shave it off the next morning? Tell me in the comments. And now we reach our grand finale. From tiny mustache charmers, we move to one of Europe's largest and most powerful owls, a creature of myth, mystery, and raw power. Let's meet the Eurasian Eagle-Owl. From the tiny mustached bearded reedling, we now close our journey with a giant, the Eurasian Eagle-Owl. If there were ever a bird that looked like it belonged in myths and legends, this is it. With piercing orange eyes, massive wings, and ear tufts like horns, the eagle owl is one of the most powerful owls in the world, and Germany is lucky enough to be one of its strongholds. Standing over 2 feet tall with a wingspan reaching nearly 6 feet, the eagle owl commands respect. When it perches on a rocky outcrop or forest branch, it looks like a sentinel, silently surveying its kingdom. But the moment it takes off, its huge wings carry it on ghostly silent flight, gliding effortlessly through the night. Here's a fun fact. Despite their size, eagle owls are masters of stealth. Their feathers are specially adapted to muffle sound, so they can swoop down on prey, hares, ducks, even other birds of prey, without the faintest whisper of wings. It's nature's ultimate night hunter. Now for the twist. The eagle owl once nearly vanished from parts of Germany due to persecution and habitat loss. Farmers saw them as threats to livestock, and hunters targeted them unfairly. But thanks to conservation efforts, these owls have made a remarkable comeback. Today, their haunting calls echo once again through Germany's forests and cliffsides. A living reminder of resilience. Imagine standing in a dark German valley, stars overhead, when suddenly a deep booming hoo-hoo rolls across the night. You turn, and in the faint moonlight, see 2 blazing orange eyes staring back. Would you feel fear or pure awe? So here's my question. If you had the chance to encounter one of the world's largest owls in the wild, would you hold your breath in silence or whisper a greeting to the forest watchman? Share your thoughts in the comments. And with the mighty Eurasian Eagle-Owl, we close our journey through Germany's skies. 15 strange, fascinating species that prove this country is as wild as it is cultural. And there we have it, 15 strange and fascinating birds of Germany, from the flamboyant crest of the Eurasian Hoopoe to the rainbow flight of the bee-eater, the eerie calls of the nightjar, and finally the piercing orange eyes of the mighty eagle-owl. Each bird has shown us that Germany is far more than castles and culture. It's also a land of wild surprises. These species remind us that even in a country known for its cities, history, and traditions, nature still thrives in forests, rivers, mountains, and marshes. Every crest, every dance, every haunting call is part of a bigger story, one of resilience, wonder, and the strange beauty that keeps us curious about the natural world. If you enjoyed this journey, give the video a like, hit that subscribe button, and share it with friends who love wildlife as much as you do. And tell us in the comments, which bird of Germany amazed you the most today? Was it the hoopoe's crown, the shrike's butcher tricks, or the owl's fiery stare? Thank you for watching. Until next time, keep exploring, keep wondering, and never stop being amazed by the world's incredible birds.